Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to March Mystery Madness for 2024, a venerable BookTube event now in its ninth year, celebrating murder mysteries in all their forms. I'm one of the co-hosts of this event. I've got a bunch of other great co-hosts. I love murder mysteries. I don't hold off on reading them all year long as I do with some other BookTube events, but I concentrate on them in March, absolutely, with perhaps a lapse coming up in the next week. But I don't know. I can't account for next week at all. But I'm hoping that I get in a March Mystery Madness video every day. I would like that. Because March Mystery Madness is in its ninth year, one of its guiding prompts for this year, if you want to use prompts, is to read the ninth book in a series. Because there have been innumerable murder mystery series, and quite a few of them, I'd say probably conservatively, 85% of them got to number 9. Because if you dangle money in front of an author, most of them are so poor and so desperate that they will take it. They will just keep writing, the mystery of the spotted tomato forever. If they know there's a paycheck there, they'll keep doing it. And so I have concentrated on that for this month. I'm going to skip most of the other prompts, except when they turn up accidentally, and just read the ninth installment in as many murder mysteries as I can get my hands on. I want to vary these between murder mystery series where I'm familiar with the series and I also have read number 9 at least once, and series where I haven't. So last night, after a little bit of hemming and hawing, I actually a little reading blip showed up on the radar. I wasn't sure I was going to read a murder mystery at all, but I wanted a palate cleanser, and last night I decided to pick a number 9 that I've never read. I am stocked to the gills with these things, so I've got plenty to choose from. I chose a little bit of an odd item, and there are other odd choices coming. I chose this. Murder, She Wrote, number 9, Murder on the QE2, by Jessica Fletcher and Donald Bain. The conceit being kept forward here being that Jessica Fletcher is a mystery author. She writes mystery novels. And this is odd on a number of levels. The most obvious of which, obviously, of course, is that Jessica Fletcher was created for TV. She's a composite character. She was created for TV, and over the course of many, many seasons of the show, Murder, She Wrote, little bits and pieces were added to her all along the way by writers who didn't know each other, didn't know what each other was doing, just wanted to tell some sort of story with a new hook or a new gimmick this time around. That can lead to an unbelievably inconsistent character if it doesn't lead to a character who is non-existent. And somewhere along the line, a long time ago, somebody came up with the idea, well, we should have books as well. The books have turned out to be even more durable than the series is. I don't know how many seasons the series ran for. It was quite a lot. Well over a decade. But the books are still going on. And this is the 9th one in that series, where Jessica Fletcher, the author, in this novel, she is already, we're told, the world's most famous detective novelist. She gets a word from her agent that he has booked her on a cruise ship. Her passage will be free if she gives a lecture. I think it's a week-long cruise. She has to give 2 lectures, I think, on something to do with crime, murder mystery, that sort of thing. And in addition to that, he has also arranged that she will write an original stage play that will be enacted during the cruise. The idea has great appeal to her. I don't know why. I don't know why, unless you're really fond of botulism. But it has appeal to her because her late husband took a cruise with her right in the early part of their relationship. And he said at the time, they enjoyed it so much that he said at the time, we should do this every year. Regardless of how much it costs, we should save up every year to do this because it's so wonderful. It should be a little gimmick that we do, a little wonderful thing that we do together every year. And that thrilled her. And then he died. So she never got a chance to do it again. And now enough time has passed so that she loves the idea. I had never read, I think I read one book in this series. I don't think I've read any others, but I didn't know what I was expecting here. But my alarm bells went off when I heard what her agent was saying to her. And I hoped that she would raise those alarms herself free passage on board a cruise ship in exchange for being a celebrity guest, the world's most famous mystery author. Give a few lectures. Fine. Writing something? Writing a stage play? That had better be not only extra money, but a pile of extra money. And it does come up, and her agent assures her that, he'll make sure she's well compensated for that. That was one flag that came up for me was, okay, well, a lecture's fine. People do that. They get invited, every cruise ship needs some sort of entertainment for the guests. But writing something means work. So you'd better be compensated for that extra and above the price of your ticket. But another alarm bell that rang for me is, well, who's to say that she can do it? Saying that just because you're a writer, you can sit down and write in an entirely different form of writing and have it work. She mentions in the book, she mentions that she wrote some screenplays for her early novels and that directors seem to like them. Okay. She also meets with the man who will be directing the play on board the cruise. And she is told by her agent all the other guests who will be there. There is, for instance, a very superannuated actress. When Jessica Fletcher hears her name, she confesses, I thought she was dead. I didn't know that she was still alive. She is still alive, it turns out, and she is flogging a memoir to publishers. She will be there to give a lecture. She will be, in fact, the other official lecturer, but there'll be other people, a celebrity chef, and a bunch of other figures will be there as a kind of literary package tour. And Jessica Fletcher agrees. She agrees to go. She is bombarded right away by all the quirky New England characters in Cabot Cove, Maine. Aya. She's bombarded with all of them right away. Word spreads right throughout Cabot Cove immediately that she is going on a cruise and is going to write a stage play. And it turns out that all the budding thespians within range either have a play or know someone who has a play and want her to consider it. She has to politely tell all these people that she's the one being paid to do this. And she mentions, very politely, but I'll come back to that it's a plague on being a writer, being known as a writer, that people are going to want you to read their work, even though that's unrealistic. That's not fair. It's very time-consuming to read someone's work critically. You wouldn't ask it of someone just casually. You wouldn't walk up to someone that you knew to be a symphony conductor and say, oh, that is just great. What a great job to have. Hey, I'm having a bunch of friends over for spoons and kazoo night. Could you direct us? You wouldn't do it. It wouldn't even be a question of whether or not you could afford the person. You wouldn't ask. But all of her friends in Cabot Cove do ask, Aya, and then we launch. And you'll never guess what. Someone is killed on the QE2. Someone dies. The other lecturer dies. There are a whole bunch of suspects, of course, and the cruise ship is a hackneyed old venue for a murder mystery because no one's coming on or off. It's kind of like a country manor house murder in that you might not know the names of all the kitchen staff, but you know when they showed up at the scene of the crime and you know they can't leave. So it's just a question of figuring out who did it, and I don't know. I guess I'm supposed to follow the conceit here and say I don't know how much Jessica Fletcher researched what life is like on board a cruise ship, or Donald Bain, her assistant, for that matter. I don't know how much research was done here. The idea seemed to me to be in this book, as it has been in almost every other cruise ship book that I have read. Unfortunately, even done by authors that I really, really like. John Mortimer, the creator of Rumpole the Bailey, did a story just like this. And their assumption always seems to be that there is no kind or even thought of any kind of law enforcement or forensic investigation on board a cruise ship. That is not true. That is not true even on a small vessel, a vessel of 10 people that's just carrying cargo. It's not true. But you have to sort of assume that if you want the detective to have something to do. And Jessica Fletcher gets involved. And so does another character, a young woman named Mary Ward, who I don't know if you'll ever read this book. I don't know how many people do. But Mary Ward jumps out a mile, and I mean a country mile in this book. She is not any recurring character. She has not been in Cabot Cove forever. She is not any part of Jessica Fletcher's extensive literary operation, her agent, any of the people involved in the publishing house. She's not any of that. She's just a person on board the vessel, and she jumps out as a character. I wanted more of her and less of everybody else. I didn't get it, unfortunately. Instead, I got what could only be described as plotting. I got plotting. I got a lot of plotting. This is a short story. And it just plods and plods and plods. Every single phone conversation, every word of every single phone conversation, every word of every single obvious connecting of the dots, all of it is just laid out, just completely. And yet, despite all that information, despite all that plotting, despite all that prose that needed to be done, this needed to be, well, what? I don't know, 85,000, 95,000 words. It needed to be in manuscript. I have no idea. I don't know who Donald Bain is. I don't know if that's a pen name. But he needed to turn in a 95,000 word manuscript. That's what he needed to do. And boy, oh boy, does it show. But despite all of that verbiage, this is not only a murder. Murder on the QE2 is not only a murder, it's also a missing persons case. Because who is Jessica Fletcher? I have no idea at all. None whatsoever. I don't know about you. I don't know about Donald Bain, although I really, really would put money on it. But I've met murder mystery authors. And like most authors, they're morons. They couldn't solve the mystery of the missing crumpet if the kid had crumbs on his fingers. Why would Jessica Fletcher... She shows no extra intelligence, no extra insight until the end when Donald Bain hauls out all the mechanical insights that whoever sleuth X, Y, or Z is going to have. She doesn't act that way otherwise. She doesn't notice a whole bunch when she's not supposed to notice it in the final act of the novel. She doesn't seem like a person at all. The closest I could say to her having a personal characteristic in this book is negative. She seems picky, almost pedantic. She's perfectly happy to call up friends and acquaintances or just total strangers on the minorest points of verbal or social niceties. Not even etiquette. Everyone's nice to her the whole time. It's not even that. She seems... I know, I've got Angela Lansbury's face staring right out at you, and I love Angela Lansbury. I never really watched this show. It looked to me like it was just the type of thing. I had an old friend, an old hoofer, an old trooper who got a deal just like this. Network people in Hollywood came to him and said, or actually they didn't come to him, they came to his agent, and his agent came to him. His agent was a long time friend. His agent came to him and said, I got a show for you. The bad side is you're going to have to be in the studio to shoot this thing 5 days a week. And it'll probably be long days. I mean, you know what television's like. This is not a guest starring role. This is you in the show. This is a show you're the main character. So that's going to be a downside for you, buddy. I got to tell you that. And his client, my old friend, said, oh, a studio show. Okay, for TV. All right, so different writers, different directors, different everybody all the time. I'll hang out with the crew like I always do because at least they're the same from episode to episode. I'll get to know them. They won't be gone. So, all right, I'll think about it. What's it about? And his agent said to him, buddy, it's about money. He was absolutely right. That show ran forever, and so did this one. And I have a feeling that must be the genesis of this thing, that somebody came to Angela Lansbury and said, this is about money. Do you want residual checks? Do your great-grandchildren want residual checks, or don't they? Because otherwise, what is there here? Who is Jessica Fletcher? She's a non-entity. She's not in this book. She has no detective ability and wouldn't. In the circumstances that we know about her, she wouldn't anyway. And even if she did, no story like this would happen. No story at all would happen. If Jessica Fletcher had these abilities to piece together the clues that no one else can see, not even trained law people, and do it over and over again, because every time she sets foot outdoors, she encounters a dead body, either she would be arrested. There's a hilarious scene in this book about the midway point where the captain and the people in charge on the cruise ship are wondering not only who they should offer extra protection to, but who is the most likely suspect. And I was reading the book and thinking, oh, Jessica Fletcher is the most likely suspect. Why? Well, A, she has motive, means, and opportunity. She is a rival for the person who ends up dead, and she has motive and means as well. And opportunity. She's all over the place in this book. It could easily have been her. If it weren't, she didn't have plot armor, she would be the captain's first suspect. But also, B, no one else on board has been connected with 5 dozen murders except Jessica Fletcher. Even the killer, who's eventually revealed with the help of Mary Ward, with the help of this one original character. Even with the killer, when the killer is revealed, the killer turns out to have acted out of passion as much as anything else, and has never been connected with murder before. Jessica Fletcher has been connected with dozens and dozens and dozens of murders. Of course she would be the first suspect. But in addition to that, if it were known that she was not only the world's most well-known and best-selling mystery detective, but also known that she had been connected with dozens and dozens of murders, the press would never leave her alone. And I mean never. They'd be camped outside her house at Cabot Cove 24 hours a day. And if they knew that she was going on a cruise, they would know one thing beyond a shadow of a doubt. Without checking with her travel agent, without checking with anybody, without knowing any of the details of the cruise, they would know one thing for absolute lock-solid certainty, which is that someone on board that cruise is going to die. Someone on board that cruise is going to be murdered, and she's going to figure it out. They would know this by now. This is all public record. It isn't believable in any way. It is the ultimate apotheosis of the problem that we've mentioned with books in series, where they get more unbelievable as they go along because of the weight of all the previous installments. Well, this is that to the nth degree. Jessica Fletcher would never have a private moment in her life. She would be known all over the world as the murder magnet. And everyone would follow her everywhere, expecting that she's going to encounter a dead body. That doesn't happen. Instead, there's virtually nothing here. There are no trappings whatsoever of what would actually be true if you were the world's foremost mystery author. Again, I did not look up Donald Bain for this story, but I'm assuming that he's an old pro himself. He must know that he's not writing about what that life would be like. Maybe not. Maybe he would have to pull punches in order to get this story told. I didn't like it at all. Not only for all of those elements, but also because I believe that Jessica Fletcher and Donald Bain at the end of the book botched the ending. The ending just would not happen. 2 elements in particular in the ending simply would not happen. It's not that they wouldn't happen the way they happened in this book. They wouldn't happen at all. It's just, if you've got a murder on board a vessel, on board a luxury liner of some kind or other, not only are you set up for a country house murder, where no one can get off and no one can leave and no one can enter, where you've got a set location and a set list of suspects. Just as in a country house murder, so too on board a cruise ship, you not only have to have the crime and all the suspects and all the detection going on board the vessel, but you have to solve it before you hit land. In a country house murder, somebody's found dead at the foot of the stairs. The whole house is full of suspects. Now you might have an addition. It might be that before the crippling snowstorm comes, an inspector gets there from Scotland Yard. More likely, the inspector is one of the guests. And then everybody's snowed in, and nobody can leave. In a country house murder mystery like that, and I shouldn't jinx it because I'll probably read one of those by the end of March. In a country house murder mystery like that, one thing that never happens is that the murder is still unsolved when the roads are cleared, and then a month later somebody figures out who did it. No, you have to figure it out on the premises. Same thing is true with a cruise ship, and I think that's the only reason why the ending was so odd and botched, because the writer here knew that he had to wrap this up before the ship gets, before you can add on all sorts of new suspects and all sorts of new sleuths. But it didn't work at all. Now, I don't know. Some of you probably like this series a lot more than I do. Certainly some of you have read more of this series, and I have only read the one. Maybe one other. I think I might have read the first one. Just because I thought, how could this be? So you can tell me if any of them are better than what I'm describing. I think that the problem here is endemic. I think it's unfixable. The problem here is not necessarily that Jessica Fletcher was a character created composite style for a weekly TV series, where one week where every week she will announce some new fact about her own self. I used to spend time in Paris. I have experience at needlework or meat curing or whatever that you didn't know before because it didn't exist before, because the writer of this episode needs to work that into his plot. And you just add to that. You don't think you're building anything immortal, so you just add wherever you need to. To say nothing of the character being unaffected. I'm sure that in the 13th season of Murder, She Wrote, Jessica Fletcher is the same kind of person as she was in the first season, when that wouldn't be true. In addition to the writers coming in and changing whatever they like in order to fit their plot, they also can't. She never changes, and she would. When I first encountered this, I thought, well, okay, if you're doing a character that way, then of course there'll be no cohesion. This is not anyone's creation. This is the ad hoc creation of 50 different people. So there'll be no cohesion. And the way you get cohesion in a situation like that, like for instance on a TV series, is if there's a book. Not this book. Thank God. No, the series will have a book. Unofficially called so, the series Bible. When you're building a continuity like this, you specifically don't want someone to show up and say, oh, hi, I'm Jessica's husband, when he's been established as dead. You don't want to do that, so you create a series Bible. And you hand that Bible to whoever you're thinking about writing an episode 6 months down the line. Well, here are the things you can't do. Here are the things that are true about this character. I think you can always tell when a TV series of any kind has a strong book. A book that is comprehensive, a book where someone has put time and effort into it. Like, for instance, I don't know if there was ever a series of novels about Columbo, Detective Columbo, but the TV show Columbo had a strong Bible. A written, strong Bible, in addition to the incredibly strong Bible that was in the mind of Peter Falk, the star of the show, who knew right away if something was wrong. If a writer did something that was wrong for Columbo, he knew right away. You'd hear from him before you'd hear from the showrunner. I don't get the impression that Murder, She Wrote had a strong Bible. I think writers were given a more or less free hand. There were some things you couldn't do, but there was no limit on what you could do. And this is what you would get if that were true. You would get a character who is a stand-in for just any old detective. There's no reason ever given in this book, or even hinted at, why Jessica Fletcher would be good at crime detective. Why she'd be good at any of this, just because she writes books about it? No. No, not at all. I assure you that even after 50 years of writing science fiction, Ray Bradbury could not assemble a proton rifle. No, that doesn't make sense at all. It's just a fun gimmick, that's all. And I wish I could say, considering it's a fun gimmick, and I'm not meaning to rain on the parade of that fun gimmick, I know that it's a fun gimmick. But considering that it's a fun gimmick, I was kind of hoping this would be a fun, gimmicky book, and it wasn't. It had only one benefit. Reading this had only one benefit in it. It's not connected with the book, but it is connected with Murder, She Wrote, and I have to share it with you. I will leave a link down below in case you don't know about it. It is going to make your day. And beware, because this YouTube channel is unbelievably bingeable. Oh my God, you will be watching episode after episode, and every single episode will literally make you laugh out loud, at least once. There's a young woman out there who decided to, on her channel, I think their channel is called PushingUpRoses. I'll leave a link to it down below to make sure that you know about it. It's not a booktube channel specifically. She decided on her channel that she would do a breakdown, a 20-minute breakdown of an episode of Murder, She Wrote. Scenes, clips, little bits and pieces like that, perfectly on the north of copyright, so that no one needs to come after her. Although her episodes are done in so much affection that I can't imagine that the studio would come after her. And then she finishes up with her thoughts on the episode. And I was wondering about Jessica Fletcher because I don't think I ever watched the show. Maybe once or twice if there was an actor I was following, where I'd want to watch their work, no matter what, even if it was in a hokey, gimmicky show, like Jerry Orbach. for something like that. If there's an actor that I was following, then I would watch them in this or in Columbo or even on the Love Boat or whatever, but usually not. Whereas this young woman is watching everything and knows the show really well, knows its lore really well, and breaks down these episodes. And they don't tempt me to watch the show. Some of you probably love this show, but I would never be tempted to watch an episode. But her breakdowns are so good. Oh, and I was just wondering about Jessica Fletcher. I was wondering, I was wondering if I was right. I was wondering if there was any kind of book here, apart from the spin-offs from the show. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think there ever was. So it's weird that this works at all, and it doesn't mostly work. But I found that show, that YouTube channel, and I'm so glad I did. So that at least some good came out of it. And we will move on tonight. I've got another solid week of March Mystery Madness before there's any chance of being interrupted by unforeseen events or foreseen events. So I don't know what I'll do. I took a foray into the 9th book in a series that I had never read. And, it took no time at all to read, but it was a pretty frustrating reading experience. So I don't know if that means that I want to try another number 9 in a series that I haven't read, or if maybe I want to retreat to something that I have read. I think I have enough metal to forge on. I think my inclination right now, of course, my reading block of time tonight is hours from now. But my inclination right now is to pick up another number 9 that I've never read before and explore that. So you'll find out next time I make a video. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.